can all agree no young person leaving foster care should experience homelessness, poverty, isolation, or lack of education or skills needed to successfully transition into adulthood. Yet studies consistently demonstrate adverse outcomes for youth leaving foster care. The child welfare system was never set up for transitional age youth. Two documents keep me energized and hopeful. A favorite collection came out in 2019. It's called The Promise of Adolescence: Realizing Opportunity for All Youth by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. This report highlighted that adolescent brain changes offer unique opportunities for long-term development. Adolescence was described as a period of resilience that helps set the stage for a positive life course. Comforting news was that policies and interactions we have with older teens can have an impact because it's the right time for the brain to respond. Support, relationships, opportunity, and positive experience can work wonders for older adolescents. I also like a classic, Montessori's Education in Peace, 1949. We have seen children totally change as they acquire a love for things, as their sense of order, discipline, and self-control develops within them. The child is both a hope and a promise for mankind. If we keep the promise within these young lives at our center and operate from there, that's when we can change the narrative about youth exiting foster care. Together we can unlock possibilities, find opportunities, and carry hope for all transitional age youth. The team here today will mirror back what we've heard and learned in the past 8.5 months in something we call the V.I.T.A.L approach. We've drafted values, strategies to achieve those values, anticipated outcomes, and some strategies to strengthen coaching. Now, much of this can be managed within existing practice. We just hope to ensure we're going in the right direction. Now, we've all collected a lot of notes during the pandemic, and I happen to just call mine a flight log. Just connecting practice ideas from good conversation. And I've been reminded to never underestimate the power of unscripted spaces for learning. So what do we want from all of this? We want to launch young adults to success. And the goals sound something like this. All transitional age youth are in permanent, safe, and affirming relationships within their families and communities. They are productive, confident, and engaged. They are financially secure, have stable housing, employment, and educational success. Why do we need a consistent and recognizable adolescent approach? In an analysis done of youth exiting our care ages 18 plus, 60% left us with no job. 50% were housing unstable in the months preceding discharge. 21% had no high school diploma or GED. And 20 to 25% left us because of non-compliance or failure to meet expectation. In a follow-up of an earlier cohort, by age 21, 30% had experienced homelessness. 30% had also experienced incarceration, and 50% were relying on public assistance for the very basics. So why now? Why are we doing this now? It is not lost on any of us that this demographic, transitional age youth and child welfare, it was never top of mind in the body politic. The COVID-19 pandemic seemed to have heightened attention. In fact, a recent Harvard study showed that young adults were the hardest hit by loneliness. The pandemic also raised a sense of urgency around what youth in foster care always deserved: opportunity, experiences, and stability. This may be particularly salient for young persons of color, youth who are members of the LGBTQ community, and young parents, as disparities have widened. How will support for the values and the V.I.T.A.L approach lead to better outcomes? See, Deputy Commissioner Jody Hill-Lilly says that our workforce is one of the best child welfare workforces in the country. She says that all the time. She'll stand us up to any challenge. But we also have robust resources as well. When we look at the data, we know that our efforts and our resources just aren't enough. Perhaps we need an urgency to act and a values-based focus. See, I take comfort in this. If we do have one of the best child welfare workforces, and if we hold on to a sense of urgency, and if we stand on over 30 years of psychology research that emphasizes process over innate ability and achievement in predicting success, if we lean into this great research that shows together reducing risk factors and increasing protective ones is the pathway to positive outcomes, that's when we can unlock potential for all of our young adults. Some of this, of course, depends on reimagining success. We do want our young adults to have the very basics. Yes, they need to learn how to cook and drive, they need a place to store their money, but we also want them to build capacity in the more demanding areas of connectedness and belonging. We felt compelled to generate product when everything just feels so ethereal. Those drafted materials are captured on a website, and the introductory section outlines processes over the past few months. All throughout these draft materials, you'll hear the influence of several contributors: young adults, department stakeholders, external stakeholders. You'll hear thought leaders with lived experience as well as researchers and policy shapers. Transitional Supports and Success, we're just dream catchers filtering in the great ideas to help you get to better outcomes. Well, what do we want to bring to the forefront? The V.I.T.A.L approach gives young adults progressively more control over their planning, and it operates through the 5C model of positive youth development. It also rests on strengthening the foundational guardrails for those young adults who may need that the most. It also fully commits to rigorous engagement versus a focus on compliance. And all throughout, we want to ensure the voice of those with lived experience for both system adjustments and individual planning. You see, V.I.T.A.L supporters aim to advance justice by supporting anti-racist policies, and we view power sharing with young people who have lived experience as one of our core equity strategies. We hope to bring this to scale through PIC calls and through a certification series. We pulled a few concrete examples for you together from our suite of resources, and touch points were organized around 5 areas of literature that are highlighted as barriers to youth in care: relationships, housing challenges, educational challenges, and this bucket category called economic challenges, which is employment and financial capability. We also included authentic youth engagement, positive youth development, and soft skills within our housing planning in our practice guide section may be very helpful, and that was developed through our work with the Reaching Home campaign. Flight log entry 61. Some of our adjustments relate to systems of brain development active in adolescence. You'll hear a lot about the 3 R's in this work: regulation, relationships, and rewards. We know that adolescents benefit more from reward-based learning than punishment. So the example, concrete example, log entry 54, we propose that a youth earns $500 and it's deposited into their bank account after they complete a financial literacy course. Another R, relationships. Adolescents have a heightened arousal in the part of the brain sensitive to acceptance and rejection. That's why there's a heavy focus on relationships throughout our materials. Log entry 28, Sky Garofalo, young adults contact their parents post-TPR. We know that. They find them and they contact them. So let's prepare some guidelines for that contact. And that's included in one of our practice guides, along with supplemental materials on the Permanency Pact and establishing healthy relationships. You'll see the proposed Omega process. This is the outcomes map for emerging adults. Trina Mazzata, log entry 42. We had sketched out a strengths-based assessment of youth, a process co-led by youth with a laser beam focus on the strength of relationships and an assessment of positive youth development on an individual level. but I didn't have a home for it. Trina's brilliant spark was that maybe we can try to fuse this with the ACR for youth 16 and up. And if we take that idea one step further, if we play it out, we can have a dashboard that relates to transitional age youth. We don't have that anywhere in our system. I have half a notebook of conversation with Orlando and Eric, who are dedicated to trying to get this right. Milestone events. Michael Williams, log entry 36. Perhaps we can work together to promote normalcy and encourage our young adults to share their important moments with loved ones by crafting and sponsoring individual milestone events, whatever those milestones may be. Soft skills. Dr. Brett Rayford, log entry 23. There are practice guide sections available on building self-confidence, grit, and resiliency. Employment. We've created various paid options for youth in the past few months with money we already had, and we want to continue to do so. We know that you work very hard to help our young adults find work. It's such an important part of adolescent experience, so we created a practice guide section in that area. Labor specialists will highlight the importance of soft skills in finding and maintaining work. We also redrafted the adolescent policy with a very simple mindset. Let's account for the inevitability that at one point or another, young adults make big mistakes, and policies are supposed to catch them when those mistakes happen. And everything we drafted comes from a resolute belief that every single youth who experiences foster care deserves the same opportunity as a youth who don't have that experience. See, with that mindset, everything became very easy for us. We suggest that some requirements just aren't necessary. For example, the 2-bite limit. We suggest that be taken out of this policy or any related policy. And the same thing goes for the 2.0 requirement and 12 credit requirement. Yes, we want our young adults to graduate on time, but we know they're juggling multiple responsibilities, and we can apply coaching, assessment, and tutoring supports along the way so they get their degrees on time. We propose increasing reentry, CHAP, cheer services to age 23, and ensuring that reentry is an entitlement for youth when they need our help, regardless of what we think of their motivation. We also suggest that youth have an opportunity to go through supports like cheer more often. And we suggest that the program be lengthened, and we adjusted the stipend reduction schedule so it doesn't feel so steep. We also suggest that any transition time afforded to PSE graduates also apply to other youth to cover those who are more vulnerable to an adverse outcome. We believe that the concept of rigorous engagement is alive in policy, and one strategy for rigorous engagement is operating from an authentic place. Authentic youth engagement, that's the A in V.I.T.A.L. We framed 40 productive hours for what it is, a goal for most youth, instead of a strict requirement. We know that some of our youth have extensive psychiatric issues, and they might be in treatment, and they may not be able to reach that benchmark sometimes. We created a revised practice guide that's broken out into 4 stages. And again, you'll see relationships threaded throughout those materials. Why? Because every large-scale study on young adults exiting foster care emphasizes the importance of finding and helping to build natural supports. A conversation a few years ago were volunteer mentors, but now it's about where do we find natural supports. We also crafted some tip sheets. There are 13 of those, and these relate to 5 foundational areas that we talked about, and they relate to soft skills. They each have a best practice blurb, some goals, a statement of how values or practice principles are brought in action, and there's a section that may help coaching and skill development. We didn't want to prescribe work. That was not our goal throughout this. Instead, we want to follow. We want to follow the natural flow, and we want to encourage your in-depth thinking on connectedness, belonging, and meaning. Sana Cotton Latrice, log entry 103, is an adult with lived experience who we want to bring in to run workshops with young adults. She says confidence, faith, and self-worth saved her life, and it saved it then and it saves it still. We know we have to ask for some latitude, our deliverables are modest, but at least there's a purpose underneath. They also include 4 foundational briefs, and we understand they're not research papers. I get it. They're written on brain science, development in the face of racism, LGBTQ+ identity, and young parenting. We just wanted to encourage everyone to keep practices and outcomes in mind related to these cohorts because of the literature. And I'll segue now to my friend, Latasha Johnson.
Engagement and assessment and youth-driven transition planning. This is the heart of V.I.T.A.L and refers to getting to know a youth, planning, managing the work, what we are doing to prepare youth to launch. This is the life launch in V.I.T.A.L. Transfer conferences. We propose that all TAE attend this and have a voice in the transfer of a worker. Supporting adolescent work is everyone's role. Everyone will have the ability to get the training if we are green-lighted to pursue this. There are specialty skills, but we aren't arguing for exclusive caseload. The Academy will work with us on a new certification that will be available to all. Structure of TAE peer review and annual TAE office review appear in the materials. This is designed to keep TAE on the radar. And this is connected to thorough and accountable parts of V.I.T.A.L. Part of accountability is taking stock of our mental models. There was a survey of a staff in another jurisdiction. The finding was there was this belief that youth of color in this cohort don't want to attend college. They want vocational training. Those mental models can lead to disparate outcomes. Maybe annual review, discussions of TAE in offices gives us a chance to think about how many youth are assessed and where do they go. We created a tip sheet to help promote the discussion. In the annual review, have the conversation on equity for TAE. Are we offering opportunities to all youth and families? Are we doing everything possible to ensure TAE of color reach their dreams? Peer coaching of TAE. This suggestion came from an electronic survey team members learned from peer reviews and office reviews. So we developed a small structure for that. And from our breakthrough series, our partners, our young adults representing the Torrington office, Ashley, and DCF staff, Lisa Moss representing Danbury, and Christine Stebbins representing Willimantic, and Orlando Quadrado representing ACR, brainstormed good ideas on working with adolescents. For example, let's track youth who identify as their permanent connections and how youth self-identify race, ethnicity on our case plans, and compare that to what's actually in the record. Ask yourself if we can do better than this. In a survey of almost 900 TAE in our care in January, 82% have no driver's license. 70% have no bank account. 30% of youth expected to launch within 6 months did not have stable housing plans. 77 have completed the list training, but only 50% of those youth were viewed as having the skills needed to thrive. So we can't teach life skills only from a curriculum. 50% of youth were not actively involved in any community, faith-based, sport, team club activity, despite desiring to want to do so. Finally, we want to stress the importance of the youth advisory boards. Youth advisory boards are about self-advocacy training. This is an essential part of fostering youth-driven planning. There are locals and there's the statewide. We ask that you support it as an integral part of the adolescent work and not simply as an add-on. This is related to voice and choice in V.I.T.A.L. Something we would like to create and attach to YAB is the Civic Engagement Series. Shout out to Johanna Schmidt, who prompted this concept. Civic engagement is connected to systems theory under positive youth development. And now I'll segue to Ted.
If we're on the right track, we hope to create guiding documents for provider partners who typically work with older teens in community settings, like our life skill vendors or chat providers. This will help reinforce V.I.T.A.L values. We are building on lessons learned throughout the pandemic. With the rise of mental health issues and economic challenges, there seems to be a struggle just to survive. The concept is for two provider champions to work alongside paid young adults to create a manual that reinforces V.I.T.A.L values and morphs into a training package to onboard new staff. Modules would cover positive youth development fundamentals, authentic youth engagement, engaging youth voice and empowering youth leadership, serving youth from a cross-systems perspective, equity, justice, and inclusion in transitional age youth work, fostering positive family and peer relationships, and building on practical application of life skills. We also plan to engage with our partners in the Academy for Workforce Development in creating a portable training curriculum. And we will work with vendors to track the ways they are establishing meaningful partnerships with young adults, the percent of youth who report they have an equal or more say in decisions, and the number of program practice changes that are youth-driven. All engagement and opportunity efforts will be cut by rate ethnicity. This all connects to thorough and accountable in V.I.T.A.L. I'll lateral it back to Latasha.
Some of our documents refer to a functional assessment. This is the Omega process. In our minds, youth co-lead this conversation at the ACR. This will assess domains related to positive youth development. Significant others invited and youth ambassadors could be invited. This fundamental question is, who are the catalysts in one's life, and how do youth get to where they want to go? We hope that the results will populate to a TAE-specific dashboard. The process will also assess self-confidence, team satisfaction, and youth perception of role in decision-making. This is thorough and accountable and vital. We hope to eventually get to a place where youth at the age of 18 will write their own plan, something that drives our monthly contact and our work. So the vision is to move from youth co-leading development their plan to youth creating their plan. The 18+ case plan is something we are trying to craft now. One goal we have in the department is to increase ACR participation from TAE. Perhaps restructuring it to a youth co-led process and then having a youth created process would help. This is Innovate and V.I.T.A.L. We also suggest evaluations with the Sun Scholars at 18. We know that the number of youth leaving for permanency drops sharply after age 17. We still pursue permanency, but we must ramp up our planning efforts at this point. We wrote an explicit support for youth-crafted case plans. Let young people lead in decisions related to family and relationships. We looked at over 101 youth over 18 in congregate settings, like the Sweats, 102 in private foster care. These youth had multiple moves, were remarkably stable for long periods of time, and very few had the concrete tangibles we look for. We don't know why, but the natural questions were, what's the added value of the setting? Let's approach this creatively. How can other options be more appealing and provide skill and connections? Perhaps CHAP arrangements paired with activities and community networks so youth aren't isolated. So we suggest that we take out the 2-year case management requirement. And another option may be wraparound programs to support TAE where they want to be, with families and in their communities. Are we offering opportunities to all youth when family members they want to live with don't have a spotless record? This is the voice and choice at a case level in V.I.T.A.L. Also connects to our justice and equity practice principles. If an 18-year-old wants to live with a family member, can't that be assessed and wraparound support be provided through chat arrangements? We wrote that into the practice guide. This connects back to examining those mental models. Perhaps years ago, we would say older youth transitioning from care. They didn't want a family setting. They wanted independence. These mental models can lead to disparate outcomes. Stage 4 is reentry. Here we incorporated suggestions from the reentry lean. We are moving towards reentry as more of an entitlement rather than a set of requirements. The motivation of young adults to reenter isn't really something that would deter us from helping. They need us, and we owe it to them. And how we help sustain this approach? We hope to have PIC calls. This is the reflecting and adjusting in our core practices. Now I'll segue back to Linda.
We wanted to give you an example of what we call MIA, Model in Action. So in our thinking, the 800 process is conceptualized as a youth-driven summit, a focused opportunity in planning for last-minute launch. We believe that we drafted a process that's consistent with both brain science and our practice principle of shared power. We want to track who gets offered these opportunities. So this was actually inspired by a conversation long ago with Tina Jefferson, log entry 43. So we tried to capture what we do with our young adults, rigorous engagement and adjusting expectations. How have we figured out the best reinforcement schedule? So we outlined a summit conversation when a youth wants to leave or when there's even a chance that they may lose state benefits. Making sure we seize the moment and ensure that the youth understands the ramification of losing state benefits, has time to process those ramifications. And perhaps it would help to have a youth ambassador or a significant other there as they present their case. Let's just have a discourse about it. We also created a discharge checklist called the Youth Launch Inventory, and we embedded it into that conversation. You see, right now there's no easily accessible system that shows us which youth request to leave us and who has it granted. We'd like to create that system to track this. And we know that studies in child welfare show that families and youth of color may not be offered the same opportunities as their white counterparts. So in TSS, we argue that if we maintain our work, if we maintain the status quo, we jeopardize the future of these young adults, and we could also jeopardize the future Connecticut has to be the most fair and inclusive state it could be. Our vision is that our new independent living coordinator will track outcomes about 3 to 4 months out. We don't know how we're going to do this. We don't have a plan. We think it would be easier to connect with young adults through an app, and we can start pursuing creating one with them. We understand that has multiple challenges to navigate, but why do we want this data? So if you look at the hard sciences like physics, when you shine a light closely enough on an atomic particle, the energy from the light changes the movement in the particle. This is related to something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And see, I can't resist this. In psychology research, we call that phenomenon the Hawthorne effect. Please join the team of Bill and Dana.
Everything we do in TSS supports the V.I.T.A.L approach. I have the correctional liaisons. If our suggestions are supported, you will see there are reinforced policy and practice guide sections focusing on youth in corrections and on youth exiting corrections. We now keep cases open even for those youth who are sentenced for over a year. And we train our liaisons to offer the permanency pack work on the inside. We have also started to augment support for our youth in the LGBTQ+ community. We have the guidance from a subject matter expert and have created a foundational brief plus tip sheets and a practice guide section. We are creating a youth panel to advise us in creating affirming homes for our young parents in foster care, children, and LGBTQ+ youth. We know that this is not purely an adolescent area, but we chose this area because outcomes for this population of launching youth deserves more focus.
I'd like to talk about the list revisions. It relates to the life launch part of V.I.T.A.L. The enhancements to the list have been responsive. We've added the Black Lives Matter movement content to connect race and safety. It's necessary to have our providers talking to our youth about this as we have the same conversations with them. To fit with the V.I.T.A.L approach, the list also has enhanced soft skills, specifically coping skills, stress, anger management, things we all need to learn. There's also a full financial literacy curriculum embedded in the list. Financial capacity is one of the 5 impact areas in V.I.T.A.L. In addition to all the hard work they already do in core, kinship, and fictive homes, we have CBLS providers willing to enter correctional facilities to provide life skills service. So the takeaway from today is to remember to continue to refer to CBLS. We also created a housing screener from the list to help guide us when our kids may need to leave group settings. Why? Because our surveys show that we are reluctant to move youth out of group-like living environments without a screener for readiness. And since we don't have any more money, we created one. At least now we have something that could help. Let's turn it over to Aaron.
You likely associate me with the Wilderness School. We have had a chance in the past year to recalibrate to our original purpose. We build skills, self-confidence, and provide positive experiences. And this is consistent with positive youth development in V.I.T.A.L. At Wilderness School, we can demonstrate the innovate in V.I.T.A.L and help support creative employment. Transitional Support and Success found a way to give youth a stipend job with us if they're interested in environmental conservation. We can do a lot, and we don't have to buy anything new. This isn't so much about handing youth great jobs. It's about teaching proper work habits. And the V.I.T.A.L Practice Guide has some prompts on how to do that. The great thing about having no money is you can tap into creative ideas and create opportunity. What we do at Wilderness School also builds on brain science. One area of brain development active during adolescence is regulation. Dopamine gets activated in the brain, and positive experiences can help in learning and critical thinking. Our work raises the dopamine. You may not associate me with website creation. I never did. We developed a website of resources alongside 15 young adults who were paid for their time. Each of these sections have links to resources, but also content created to guide young adults. In some places, videos were created. How is this connected to the V.I.T.A.L approach? The website is about empowering youth and giving information and resources so they can have more autonomy. One lesson TSS has learned is when hiring or employing our youth, we need backup plans and a deep bench. The same youth are tapped and they get burned out, particularly in a virtual environment. Now let's segue back to Latasha.
So our proposed next steps. We ask for course correction if you've seen major missteps. Policy and practice guide are under review by the exec team. We've been having many town halls with the office director, so I'm sure you've seen my face on the round tours. If the general direction is supported, we need help from you and our young adults. In June, we wanted to start refining the Academy for Workforce Development certification training. That would go through the summer. We hope we can count on ACR to work through development of the Omega process through June and August. We're really excited about that. We would like to refine tip sheets We hope to move on building a mindshare dashboard for V.I.T.A.L, and we're getting real close. Also want to create content for what we envision, creating a health and wellness curriculum and the civic engagement series. If the direction is supported, and we're confident that it will be, we hope to start PIT calls in August. We will close with Linda.
This is my last log entry. This approach is a modest lift, but it has a chance to impact outcomes that are stubborn to change. And we know we have a long way to go to improve those outcomes. I want you to ask yourself, how good has the child welfare system been at honoring the promise in these young lives? And how much better can one of the best child welfare workforces be in that pursuit? We thank you for listening.
So as you heard from us, the important thing that we want you to take away is V.I.T.A.L are top of mind. Keep them at top of mind. And also don't forget our V.I.T.A.L approach.